they did something, long story short, they did something really nice for our superintendent, like no one's done. And they ended up being the best client. And so it's just one of those things where it's pretty gratifying to see them take care of our team.
20 to 30 sub-trades per job.
$35,000 a week.
We'll be licensed 10 years next year.
You've mastered the trade. Now you need to master the business. Welcome to the Build Line. This is episode 5. I'm Jerry Brewer, and this is Heather. And we've got a good guest in today.
First guest, virtual guest.
Virtual
guest. We are very honored, and I'm excited. Today, we're going to have Brad Leavitt, founder and president of A Finer Touch Construction, better known as AFT, if you follow him online. Brad is based in Scottsdale, Arizona. AFT has been one of the most respected and luxury home builders in the country and known for innovations in design, flawless craftsmanship, and deep commitment to collaboration across the entire build process. I've personally have had the opportunity to get to know Brad, has brought us into the builder community, and he's built an amazing network. And between his podcast, social media presence, contractor coalition, all the things, pick one. Brad is definitely one of the most sought after and I think just elevated individual in our industry. So welcome to the Build Line, Brad.
Yeah. Tell us, you have a double,
well,
right? That's how you get it all done.
I think we can be done here. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That was so kind of an intro. So.
Yeah, you do have a stunt double, right? That handles all that stuff.
I do. Yeah, you have to. You just multiply yourself by 3, and then everyone doesn't know you're a triplet.
Exactly. Just don't go to the 4th, right? There was a movie about that.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So cool. Well, we want to have you on and kind of talk about a little the industry, employees, sub-trades, different dynamic here. We got general contractors, subcontractor, and all the things that, go along with that. So I think the first thing I want to start talking about is what are the type of clients that you guys like to work with? What's different about AFT? Maybe kind of give us a little bit of background here.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think you start off with the client one. Maybe I'll answer that one first. And maybe this evolves into something else as far as marketing, but, I'd always attended things about understanding your ideal client, like how you advertise to them and how that, you find the ideal client. And it's funny because a lot of times I've learned the ideal client may be an age demographic. It might be marital status. It might be the profession that they're in, right? These different qualifiers as you kind of track that. Mm-hmm. And what I've realized over time is I try to mirror our clientele with people that have built businesses similar to mine. And what I mean by that is my ideal client, when you think about finding the right client, is someone that understands the value of project management and systems and organization, knowing that, hey, by hiring AFT, I'm selling on the pitch that I'm not on your project every day, right? And some clients, that appeals to them because like if something happens to Brad, we have a team, we have operations, we have backing, that appeals. For sure, there's going to be some clients that don't want to hire me for that because they want to hire a contractor that's boots on the ground that are there. And so you really have to understand who you're advertising to and market to them and make sure that aligns. But the way my operation runs aligns with the clients that understand, the protocol and systems, knowing that it may not be me, on the project every day.
That's heavy. We hear that a lot, People want you there and you can't be there. And who do you talk to? That's, a lot of people don't understand that. And that seems to be, like you said, your bread and butter there is hiring or having clients that are more like yourself, because we all like being around people like ourselves. And I think that's key. And a lot of people forget that. A lot of business owners forget that. They just go, I'm going to get them all and everybody's going to love me and we're going to all work together and it's going to be fine. But that's not the truth.
Do you find that clients then...
Go ahead, Heather.
Do you find clients then when they do see you on site, are they excited that you're there? Are they worried? Or they're like, oh God, Brad's here. That means there's a problem. Like, what does that look like? What's that dynamic mean for you?
That's a really good question. No, I don't think they ever think it's a problem because they know that we're still very engaged, right? It's not like we do the sell and we just like ditch them, and they leave off. And to that point, you still have some clients that are still, as much as you kind of train through the process, they still want to have that conversation with me on a regular basis, right? And so there's definitely variables to like how each of the clients operate and communicate, and you kind of have to understand that. But I'd say in general, most of the clients we're working with understand that this is the process. The reason why AFT has the brand and reputation we do is because we have very talented people that are very good. And, they understand that going through that protocol allows their project to be very successful, while also understanding, it also comes to the the topic of costs, right? Are you renting the restaurant? Or are you renting a seat at the restaurant, a table at the restaurant, right? Because the fee structure is different if we can have people that are assigned to your project as opposed to maybe the owner of the company running it. And so there's also some strategy there when you look at the financial side. And, you know, and really what that comes down to, clients that have built successful companies get that. They know that they have really successful people working for them on their teams, and that's what's allowed them to scale their business. And so that's not for everyone, though. Not every client's going to be that way. And so we really have to market and appeal to the client that understands that value and make sure that, you know, we set those clear expectations up front. And, you know, to Jerry's point, it took some time to, you know, I don't want to say wean off, but, you know, work with the client to help them understand that, you know, this is the process, this is how we operate. And, you know, that way they're comfortable in the team that they're hiring.
Have you, like with these high net worth people that you're working with, have you found that like the problems are a little bit less with them, the scratching at the door and, you know, the pettiness, does that go away, or is it a different type of, is it a different type of problem?
Yeah.
Because I mean, yours are some big stuff.
Well, I think that's an interesting question. I don't, you know, I wish I had a good answer to that, because I find, and really where I'm going is, you know, you feel like at this point in my career, I'm pretty good at vetting clients, right? And then there's some I'm going in, I'm like, this one's going to be an arm wrestle, and it becomes the easiest client to work with, which is shocking. And then I have some that are so easy at pre-con and become like the most difficult clients. And so the thing is, I think people operate differently, right? And it's really hard to identify that. And at, you know, different price ranges, I won't say that the problems are easier, less petty. It's just different. And some clients can be, you know, very aggressive. Some of them can be very kind and trust the process. And so I think a lot of it's just personality driven on the client more than it is their self-worth or like net worth, you know? And so, and really what I found is a lot of the breakdowns in communication typically happen from expectations that were set clearly. And so whether we didn't set prior, you know, good expectations up front, whether we're not communicating right, you know, I tell my team all the time that we need to be playing offense, not defense. We need to be attacking.
True.
And what I mean by that, if the client's having to call me or my team asking, what's the schedule? What's the update? Where's this? What's this? They automatically feel that they have to micromanage the project. And when you get to that point in the communication process, it's going to be a long road ahead, because the client's going to want to drive and feel they have to micromanage you. But if you're staying in front of the client and you're attacking in the sense, hey, here's the update. You know, electricians are going to be here Thursday. Well, it's Thursday. They're not here. I better advise my client and say, hey, they're not going to be here today. You know, we're waiting for the 18. They're on another project. It went late. They're going to be here Friday, but don't worry. We have it just in the schedule, right? As long as they have a vote of confidence that you know what you're doing, a lot of them, you know, will trust. But if it goes south in the beginning, it's really hard to get that back on track.
I think that's very true. I think there's a fine line that we walk as managers of projects and keeping the client informed. And then, to use my favorite phrase that my team absolutely hates, is the making of the sausage, right? Because you want to tell them and you want to be honest about what's going on. But then there's sometimes you're like, okay, this is a bigger problem, and we need to come up with a game plan. And so there's always a fine line of disclosing that to the client, but setting that expectation as well.
Mm-hmm. I think we could close with playing offense and not defense. That was it. I mean, that sums it up. I mean, that was it. That's a good one. If anybody listens to this the whole hour, they need to take that home with them.
That's it. We can cut it off now.
Because that's a real skill.
How do you have your team help with that communication and setting those standards and expectations? Is that a weekly owners meeting? Is that a checklist? Like, how do you guys manage that and really conveying that to the client?
You know, it's a really good question. One thing we do is when we start the project, we let the clients know every Friday they're going to get a video update from our team. And so this is the superintendent, the coordinator, you know, the AFT members that are involved, including myself. We have the architect, the designer, and the client. And so it's typically 10 to 15 people on the text thread. And by them getting updates every Friday, you know, they're engaged. Whether they're in town, out of town clients, they're seeing updates. Here's what took place this week. Here's a 3-week look ahead. So that communication is constantly happening. One thing we tell our team is with that, you know, not only from a schedule perspective, but also, hey, these are some items outstanding. Now, we don't do this on the group text, but we do have weekly communication via email. And we have something called the PCO log, and that's the potential change order log. And that's really valuable because what happens, even though we're cost plus, clients are making changes. There's open items, right? There could be maybe an allowance or like a placeholder here. And so what ends up happening is it's very important to communicate with the customer. Here's potential costs that could be coming, depending on changes you're making or just with the project itself. And so by having that, the clients are surprised when that change order comes. They've already been tracking it. Okay, we have $40,000 in potential change orders based on these items as we get hard numbers in. And so they're tracking financials, they're tracking decisions that need to be made, they're tracking schedule. And this communication is happening weekly between the entire team.
Wow.
Like that.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. Jeez. I mean, potential change orders being tracked that way really leaves a clear view of what's going to happen instead of that, hammer falls on them and, oh, you owe me 50 more thousand and why and what. And that's heavy. Having those SOPs to where everybody understands them and setting that expectation in the beginning is super huge. I mean, and I work for a lot of different size general contractors, and the ones that don't have these systems in place like you do, I just see it fall apart right in front of them. And it's so funny to me because they know these systems are there to use for everybody, and they don't. It's just like my head in the sand or something.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting about that, Jerry, is, I mean, you could take the client angle too. And I was asked this just recently, so it's probably relevant to this conversation, is that, yeah, you have the client angle when you don't have systems and operations and how you have these gaps and it creates a lot of tension with the client. But I found that, the systems and operation help company culture. They help hiring, and because you could bring on some amazing talent, but if you don't have systems and operation dialed in, that talent's not going to stay with you. They're going to get burnt out. They're going to move to another firm. And so if you can keep them and land good talent and actually retain them, the only way that happens is with good systems.
Yeah.
And
good talent need
so
leaders.
It's just, yeah. And the thing is that what that means is you keep talent over time, you as a company get better and you communicate better and you set expectations better. And so it's just kind of that rising tide that helps the entire company and helps the client in the long run.
Yeah. I think, talking about those processes, we've all worked, we're all in the residential space now. I think everybody here also has the commercial aspect that we've all worked in commercial construction too. I know, Jerry, you've shared your experiences coming through the union and, developing processes in your own business. Brad, I know that's your background as well. It was the same thing for Steve and myself. What do you think is one of your biggest takeaways from commercial construction that you've implemented with your AFT team that you think is the number one thing that has set you guys apart?
Yeah, I would say Bluebeam is one of the biggest things, right? How we organize UiPads. And this is, a highly sophisticated field team that understands. And here's where I'm going. This is kind of a funny comment, but, I think it's relevant to the question is we were on a big, complicated project and the designer, she's designed for the Walmarts, the Waltons. She's done some of the most amazing projects around the country. And we're on a sidewalk and she has a great personality. And I have two guys, Spencer and Ben at the time, taking notes on their iPads. She says, this is the first time I've ever seen men take notes on a job site. And it was kind of funny that she said that, but essentially what she was saying is I've never seen a field superintendent team at this level of sophistication, not just taking notes, but really redlining plans, detailing things as we're walking. And this is a very complicated build. And so when you think about commercial construction, it's very system oriented, right? It's very documented. There is part of that that's CYA, just for like legal reasons. But, in residential, it's kind of the Wild West. And so systems, organization, site cleanliness. I mean, I've been on a lot of commercial job sites, some really complicated ones, and most of them are clean because there's a safety issue and they keep them clean. At least some of the ones I've been on. Residential, sometimes it's just a hodgepodge. It doesn't matter. And so there is definitely a level of respect in commercial when and where I'm going, I've worked on military bases. I've worked, in school district on remodels. They're very strict when you're doing government work, how clean, or if you're working in a hospital, right? A lot of us have been through that. If you've worked in the medical field and how careful you have to be with anything you're working on just for sanitary purposes. And so bringing those practices in residential makes a huge difference from cleanliness and systems.
Yeah, I would say that, everybody says, oh, commercial, this big job, this big that. I've been on some of these large residential projects that seem to be way harder and more detailed than some of these big commercial projects. So, people ask me all the time, why don't you back into commercial or do this, that? And I go, that really doesn't have much to it. There's no soul. It's not really as rewarding at the end. I think that residential kind of doesn't get its due when it comes to complexity and all the different things that you're involved in.
I think it's the evolution of
Yeah.
building, though, right? I mean, you think about it. My house was built in 2004, and there's one tile in all the bathrooms, and there's one paint color, right? And there's one countertop. And so I just think the evolution of Pinterest and mood boards and style and all these other things, right? I mean, you got 15 different tile types. You got all these different countertops. I think that complexity of build has only increased as more inspiration images and more things are available to us of this different world that you could have.
Yeah, I'm working on a residential project now that the low voltage guy's got his own job shack. That's how long he's going to be there on a house.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was never like that before. So I guess you're right. It is changing, and there's a lot that goes into it and the
There's
change.
just more. It's all the trick stuff. It's all the trick stuff we see on Brad's Instagram. So all the coolest
He
stuff.
doesn't know that was his double.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, that's my double posting that. So yeah.
I mean, I think it leads into a good question though. Is do you find residential to be more rewarding for you and for your team than just somebody knocking on your door and saying, "Hey, go build the CVS down the corner"?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, I've been fortunate to work on some great commercial projects, even under AFT. And I think construction in general is very rewarding. It's very difficult, but something that's unique about our profession, you actually get to see things go vertical and be completed, and people use that. So if you've done a restaurant or a brewery or, you mentioned even a Walgreens, someone's, operating, but there's definitely something very personal about a house. Because when we finished a brewery or a restaurant or a hair salon, it's great. We're not getting liquidated damages. Clients in, they're operating. We can go visit.
Yeah.
It's incredible. When we finish a home for a family that's worked their whole life and never built their home, and they walk in and it's furnished and they're crying and they're so emotional, it just hits a different chord. You don't see that in commercial. I've never had a commercial client cry when they, occupy the space, but I've had it numerous times with our clients to see, hey, these are memories for my kids and my family and grandkids, and this is where we're going to grow together. And so there's definitely something much more emotional about residential building. And so we have to understand the sensitivity and really how important that is for our client.
Definitely. I agree with that. What's your guys' signature touch at the end when you turn over? Is there something cool that you guys do at the end? Like, how do you tap into that? How do you really make them cry, Brad?
I don't know if it's something we do to make them cry, but I would say when we work with really talented designers, they're typically doing a turnkey completion, which means they're doing furnishings. Mm-hmm. So one thing we try to do on most projects is we have a grand reveal. And so what happens is typically as we're getting near C of O, we ask the client not to come back to the house. And a lot of them may have picked furniture, but they don't remember what it looks like. So then we have a few weeks there to install furnishings, get the drapery in, have everything programmed, get photography done, and then bring the client in and do the grand reveal where they're seeing the furniture all completed and, the whole house style for the first time. Mm-hmm. And that's always an emotional experience because they don't get to cheat and look ahead at the furniture. They get to see the grand reveal in person. So that's definitely an item. And we always, at this function, at least the last one we had, of course, we have a little thank you gift for our clients. But our team will set up a nice spread, right? We'll sit there and kind of, have a little snack or meal together as they're doing the grand reveal. So, and we also have a special little keychain we give them, that's AFT embroidered and, that they can remember, us as, we worked with them on the build.
I love that.
Yeah, your team, when you do, how much do you involve them in that closing? Do you give them the time to be there to get that sense of pride that they've been there for 2 years working on this project?
Yeah, you have to. In fact, it's always our superintendent and our coordinator that have been working on that project that are there. And we'll have typically Megan, Spencer, myself, and the leadership team there. And they have to because they're the ones who really did most of the work. And what I do appreciate, most of our clients have seen that, and our clients will come to me and be like, hey, Brad, are you okay if we do a little something for the superintendent or the coordinator, whether it's a gift card or a gift? I love that. And it's nice that they ask, but I love that they do that. We just had a client, going back to early in the conversation, we had a client that I swear was going to be one of our most difficult clients. And it was one of those where there were so many, I shouldn't say so many, there were some red flags in pre-con. I should be careful in case they ever listen to this, but they did something, long story short, they did something really nice for our superintendent, like no one's done. And they ended up being the best client. And so it's just one of those things where it's pretty gratifying to see them take care of our team.
How do you prep your team for that kind of emotional swing, both good and bad, right? Like the reward at the end, how do you keep that in their forefront as they're, dealing with the problem? The drywall guy screwed something up. I don't know, right? How do you tap into that from an employer to employee standpoint?
Well, I think it's tough. I mean, we do have AFT team walks, and so that's going to help with the motivation of the team, as you kind of start dragging at the end to get the punch list finalized and get, that going. From the recommendation of one of our employees, and we love feedback from our team, is we do these little lunches now that we've started, that as we finish at home, we take that team and we have a little outing, and there'll be, as we kind of audit the project and have some time together. I mean, that's really important. And of course, if you're speaking about burnout, it's a real thing. And so we have to be mindful, as a contractor, our trades are really good at the first 95%. They're not very good at the last 5%. And so you really have to have a lot of grit to get that last 5% done for a client before they move in. And so whether it's proper expectations, timeline, enough time in the schedule, so you're not trying to just hurry and get done, these are all important qualifiers to make sure that, the mental health is good for everyone there at the end.
Have you had to take anybody out of like a project management role because it was just a little too emotional for them? They couldn't kind of cut it. I mean, it's a stressful role. I see them come and go.
It's hard. I think just in general, construction's hard. Like, what we do is way too hard. And it's, sometimes we just aren't paid enough for what we do. Yep. There's so much risk. There's so much frustration. And so, there's been times where you have to make changes with teams. I mean, it's pretty rare, but on occasion, we'll have to even switch a team off a project because they're just not mixing with the client. And at the end of the day, we need to perform for our client. And those are hard decisions to be made. And the sad thing is when that happens, it affects other clients too, because look, if I'm pulling Jerry and Heather off this project, well, I got to put someone on theirs. And so that the client that may be happy with their team gets pivoted. So it's a very delicate balance. And that's why it comes down to communication, right? We just have to make sure that we're giving the support to our team and giving them the tools necessary. And hopefully they're being good stewards.
How do you determine from your teams, because you keep coordinator and site supers together, correct?
Yes.
How do you determine, taking location aside, everything else like that? Are you picking based off of the build for that team, or is it, I think you're going to do, you got the build. That's not hard. You can handle this client. Which one, what gets more weighted for you when you make that choice?
That's a good question. I would say it's pretty rare that we're putting a team together based on client specific, like personality. I think it's really important that you just hire people that match and mirror the culture that you're trying to present. So I would say in general, everyone is very good from that perspective. So I don't really worry about any team member that we have in front of any client, because in general, most of them have a very good, demeanor about themselves and understand what we're trying to communicate here at AFT. But yes, availability in the schedule, proximity, drive time, life, work balance, these are real. So like, I have people that live in different parts of town, and we have a wide footprint. It's very widespread in Phoenix. So I'm very careful. I try not to send someone from Gilbert up to Cave Creek every day, where they're driving 2 hours on the road. Ideally, if they're in Gilbert, they can stay in Gilbert 15 minutes away. So we try to be mindful of just proximity, and then making sure that, and it's not like I just have, this team, like, it's not like just Paul and Sue work on every project. Sue could work with Paul. She could work with, Ryan. She can be working with Terry. So, our coordinators are used to working with, one of my coordinators has 4 jobs working with 4 different supers. So she gets all the personalities out there, and each one operates a little bit different.
All the quirks.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I think pivoting a little bit here, talk to us a little bit more about your growth. It's been fun. I feel like I've gotten a chance to know you let's say like right pre-COVID, then we all went into COVID, and then after. And it's been so cool to watch your team grow and watch you guys and your business grow and see what you guys build and do. What does scaling look like for AFT, and how have you controlled that? How have you tackled that?
It's a good question. And really, I would credit a lot of that to Spencer. So I think, Spencer works for me. I mean, he's you have to have a good visionary and a good integrator. And Spencer's a phenomenal integrator. I feel like I'm a good visionary. And so together we partner very well. And, again, I had some great people that worked for me around the time I met you, Heather, back in 2018, 19, 20.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the systems to how we have them today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lost those people. They came in, they get frustrated. They're like, wow, this is really hard. It's a lot harder than it looks on Instagram. And you lose them because you just don't have those systems. And so, when you think about scaling, the only way to scale is that if I'm out of pocket or out of office, could someone step in and handle my job if I'm not there? Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the key is, documenting things so that you can delegate, so that you can, rely on team members. If someone's out of the office or on vacation, someone can step in right away. And so it's really important that you understand how much systems drive that.
Are you good at following your own systems? Sometimes I feel like visionaries are visionaries, but they don't like a process.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard. And it's funny because I got reprimanded. Fortunately, I'm in a Builder 20, and we did a SWAT where our 5 of the members came in and they did an evaluation of the company. Mm-hmm. And the best feedback was, they're like, Brad, you're kind of like the Tasmanian devil. You kind of come in and you create all this chaos and then you leave and you don't listen.
We call that seaguling, but same concept.
Yeah, same concept. And so you come in, and this is where it's been really good to have a leadership team, because now you're bouncing these ideas instead of just saying, we're going to do this tomorrow, without understanding how that impacts each layer of the organization. Mm-hmm. You're speaking with others in the organization at these different layers. They can say, hey, that's actually a great idea, or this is like the worst idea ever. Here's why. Why don't we do it this way? Mm-hmm. And so when you have a good sounding board, you're actually vetting some of these conversations and changes before just implementing them, because change is tough and you have to make sure that everyone's on board.
All these systems and hiring the right people and the team and the culture, a lot of people, they'll first say, I don't have the money to do that. How do I hire these people? How do they get past that? I mean, that's the first thing, it costs, right? We're sitting here on a podcast talking about all these grand ideas and SOPs and this and that, and the other guy's going, how do I hire $150,000 a year project coordinator? How do you even get to that in a less than 10-year time almost? I mean, it seems just amazing.
Yeah, it's a really good question, I think. And this is where it's really important to understand that, this is why systems are important. If you're a one-person shop, there's going to be some extra time to document how you're doing things, how you're doing accounting, how you're doing marketing, how you're doing, the superintendent work. But you have to make time for that. Now it helps a little bit with ChatGPT and AI. You can kind of talk through things. It can create systems. It's a lot easier today. But the reason you have to do that, because at some point, you'll have the sales. At some point, you keep driving and those sales will come in. And if you have that information, it makes it easier. And this really goes to understanding your business, which took me a long time, how to bill. And, the way we're structured, it makes it a lot easier to hire someone if I need it, because you're billing to the job. You're billing that person to the job. So when you understand how to cover that cost, it makes it easier to start hiring and now delegate, so that you can focus maybe on the vision of the company.
That's such a hard balance, I think. How much are you working in the business, working on the business? How do you balance those two? And then obviously turning that responsibility over to your team. I think that's a challenge we all struggle with across the board. Yeah.
The end on, is on a scale, and then you're sliding over, to more on the business, and I guess building, what they call it, building a business for a reason, right? And what you just said was that it's just, you start here and you build and you document and you tweak it, and then one day you wake up and you're all over the place.
I think it's hard though too, because what does that look like, right, Brad? I mean, like, I look at you guys have been in business for over 10 years, right? Just about 10 years. And
Yeah, 12. Yep.
12, right? We're coming up on 10. And I look at like, you can't help but do the judging game of like, well, how's Brad grown that fast, right? Jerry, how
yeah.
have you grown that fast? Like, that's such a hard metrics to follow because it seems like it should be easy, right? Just plug and play. I could grow my business too. I could do it like a Brad's done it. But it's really being bought into that, to your point, Brad, of having that check and balance of being the visionary, being the implementers, and having the right people in the right seats to help make that happen. That's so hard.
Yeah, and and I think part of that, Heather, I mean, it's the comparison thing's hard because there's so many variables, right? Market dictates it.
Yeah.
What's your market look like? Cost, what can you charge in your market? How strong is your subcontractor base? Can you even handle more work if you were to get it? Marketing strategies, and systems, it just goes on. And so really, you really just have to spend the time to operate and make sure your business is operating at full proficiency. And then, do the best you can based on that to scale to whatever that means in your market.
What advice would you give somebody that's like, I'm going to grow. I want to grow. And I want to grow 2x from what I'm doing now. What would be your biggest
2x,
advice?
good number to start. 2x.
2x. I want to double.
So I think before you give advice, it's really understanding what their purpose is. Like, is your purpose money? Is it time? Like what are you trying to pursue? Like, just because, is it ego?
Yeah.
If you're trying to grow your business 2x out of ego, well, just because if it's for revenue or you feel like you're going to make more money, just because you do more work doesn't mean that you're going to make more money. You may make less and your headaches may triple. So that's why it's really important to understand what the why is and what you're trying to achieve. And then you have to go back and structurally figure out, okay, well, how do I get there? And does it make sense?
Yeah.
So you need a set of plans.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Look at
need
that.
somebody to
Plans.
design it in your head and then put it on a set of plans and build it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the answer, is you had the right design about who you want to be and how you want to present your life and end it, then you have to have a set of plans and work off that. I mean, I don't want to say it's pretty simple, but it is if you take it and break it down that simple, don't get in your own way. I think being a contractor or getting a license or whatever you need is the easy thing. And they're giving it out a little too easy, and it sets this expectation, I'm going to do this or that, or it's just a lot of work. But also, if you have that design and that set of plans, you can do it, I think.
I think Brad brought up a good point too. I think that having, you mentioned Builder 20, right? Having some kind of outside review, check and balance, whatever you want to call it, input, feedback, I think is so key. I know in my business that's been a huge driver for us to just understand you don't know what you don't know, right? And so if you can tap into your network, your community, somebody outside your market that can guide you or mentor you, that's such a pivotal piece in any business, I feel like.
Well, it takes a lot of, humility is the word, right? Is that it? I mean, a lot of people don't want that.
Yeah.
They're too scared to ask for help. They would just go over here and I'll do it my way, and ignore it for a decade. He's talking about being in business almost 12 years. That's not a lot of years in the reality of construction, and he's leaps and bounds past a lot of people because he has put himself out there, vulnerability, and accepted advice and changed his ways. And I think a lot of construction people don't want to do that.
It's hard. I mean, I think change is hard. We're like, as creatures, like we all get comfortable, and it's hard for employees. It's hard for us, but to your point, the more humble approach you can be and understand, hey, there might be a better method. Why not be have the mentality that, yeah, let's try this out. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. And being open to that feedback, because it's nice and you might want to line up for it, but if you're not bought into it yourself and coming with an open mind, it's not really going to be very helpful either.
Well, following it, I get advice all the time on let it go out the window, My dad told me, he said, I'm going to stop talking to you. You don't even take any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's hard. You get it. I mean, how many people have you given advice to that in 5 years, they're just still making the same mistake over and over again? And I think it's
like I said, change is hard, man. You can be told over and over, but it's just tough.
Yeah. It is. That's very true. And I think it kind of goes into putting yourself out there and putting more of that information out there and, what you guys do in general. What does that look like for you guys with social media? And I mean, I love the fact that you guys have all of your, Spencer at AFT. We might have copied you, and our team was like, we want to be like AFT, and we got TCI Janae and TCI Tyler and everything else, right? But how is putting that out there and your team being involved in that, what does that do for your brand? What does that do again for like putting all of your employees out there? It's easy enough to poach somebody. Like how does that help you and your culture?
Well, I think, yeah, it does, because people that, to have good retention, you have to have people that believe in the product. So there's no better example than believing in the product by changing their Instagram, or having one to be part of the AFT brand. I think there's always a risk about poaching because it does happen. I mean, but I think in general, you try to create a culture where people want to stay. That there's benefits outside of pay. And the pay's great. I think that's part of it. But there's also a benefit package, and there's team, and there's culture and holidays, and there's different things you can do to retain your people. So I think you just have to be mindful of all that and understand that, hey, I'm pretty confident who we are as a company and brand. And so with that being said, I'm not going to worry too much about people poaching, because I think it'd be pretty rare people leave just because, it's a great company. It's great people that, and why go somewhere else? The grass is always greener,
Yeah, I agree. What do you think is the biggest culture kill in a company?
Oh boy.
What do you think is the biggest culture kill?
Yeah, I think it's team members that can't get along with others, right? And it took me a long time to understand that it doesn't matter how talented someone is, if they're a cancer to the culture, like to the people, they don't treat them right. It's just not worth having them, and you got to get rid of them right away. And so that's where it's just really important to understand you have to guard your culture at all costs. And people that are gonna yell at clients, yell at each other, yell at team members, I mean, it's just not worth the risk. And, and so it's really important to have people that just align with, they can just get along.
Yeah.
Cheering on each other, helping each other through the tasks. And yeah, I try to get everybody together as much as I can in a non-work space to kind of get them to realize we're all just people, and we all have families and wives, and take all the stuff out of there, and just we all become kind of friends and closer, and kind of encourage the conversations. And I think that really helps with the team building and making sure that one person isn't putting down another, and building up instead of competing.
You guys do like team breakfasts, don't you? Like once a month or something like that?
Yeah, like every 4 weeks or so, we have a big breakfast and talk and hang out and tell jokes and just good stuff.
It's awesome, but when you get together, it's just great for everyone to be together at the same time.
Yeah.
I think it's very true, and it brings it back to the bigger picture, right? We all have a job, but we all spend a lot of time with a lot of people in our jobs, more than our families sometimes. So, what does that look like? How do you support each other?
The team? Oh, it's fun. This is the fun part. It's like today was Paul's birthday, Paul Lundgren. And so we have a group text. Everyone's like sending funny gifs and memes and stuff. And so we do that for each other's birthdays, for their anniversaries at AFT, right? Even like personal wins that they're having. We may have kind texts that like a client may send, and we'll send it to the group. So we have a group text. We're sharing social media content on there. We're doing outings, and really, I just being open, I had a stroke a couple of years ago. And for that reason, health is a big part of like the future for me and for the team. And so a lot of them, we work out together, we go to the gym together. I have a gym membership for a lot of the employees. And so a lot of them are on their fitness journey, which is kind of cool. So we just do a lot of things. We're going to being in Phoenix, we're a little spoiled because you have a lot of sports teams. So we have, our vendors are taking us. And so we're, everyone has turns going. So we have a lot of outings and things after. A lot of our employees hang out and they go out, to dinner restaurants outside of work. So that's the key.
I love that. I always feel so proud, like a proud parent, when my employees decide to hang out with each other outside of something that
Yes.
I've organically made them go
Yeah.
do. I'm always like, oh, that's great. Like, I love it. I don't know. It's probably what I feel like when my
Yeah.
boys decide that they like each other and want to hang out.
Yeah, I'll hear
Yeah.
these little side stories, and I go, "What were you guys doing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting."
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
invited me, but you know.
I just equate it to like nobody's gonna invite mom, right? Like you're not gonna invite your parents to go, drinking, right? So I just, maybe when you're older, but I try to
Once
look
you
at it from
once
that.
you get, it's kind of like Michael Scott. They don't want to invite Michael Scott, if you're an Office fan, Heather. So maybe one day you'll get invited.
Maybe one day, exactly. I just kind of look at it as like nobody's gonna invite mom. It's okay. I'm okay with it, so it's fine.
It's not fun to invite your boss.
No, exactly.
I've seen it.
fun.
I've been invited, and they're not having fun. They're kind of like thinking about my perception of them. I think
Oh,
sometimes
yeah.
I'm watching them flutter around. Straightening up. Jerry's here, and I'm just like, hey,
You're
relax.
like, it's fine. We're having
it's
a beer.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing.
It's such an interesting dynamic. I feel like that. I want to just show up after there's like 2 cocktails. Then I'm good. Then they've
Loose.
settled down a
Yeah,
little bit.
and
It's
they
like,
start
okay.
poking at you a little bit.
Okay, I'm okay with it. Our culture is
So
definitely the let's make fun of each other, but we do it out of love.
That's good. It should be. You got to have a little banter.
You have
I mean,
to.
social media has been great for everybody, but I mean, you're such a big deal. There's has to be some negative things that have come along from all of this. Have you had any of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I think when you think about negativity, yeah, I think there's always a drawback in some ways. It leaves you open for criticism, right? Not even just from trolls, but from others that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people will judge certain things you're doing. And so you just have to choose to not hear the noise, be really focused on what you're doing and what your consistency of your game plan and your strategy and just stay at it. So, I think that social media has a lot of cons, but there's a lot of pros, and I feel the pros do outweigh the cons, as tough as that is at times.
If somebody's just getting started and they're wanting to put more of their content out there, what advice would you give them? You guys are very strategic in the way you name projects and, tagging your team and what you show, what you don't show. It's definitely comes within a strategy. So if somebody wants to start that, what tip would you give them?
Yeah, I think, one is consistency, right? So be consistent. And I think a lot of us get obsessed or paralyzed about the content. Yes, you want quality content. You want something that's going to be great for your audience, but be interesting. If you don't have great content, be interesting. Bring value. And understand what that means. I'll give a good example. So anyone that knows Kyle Stumpenhorst with RR Buildings, I give Kyle so much credit because he builds barns, like post-frame construction in Illinois. Like, I don't know of a more boring profession than to go build a barn in the middle of farmland, USA. And he's from early on, he has GoPros and drones and little cameras set up everywhere, as he's with his backhoe digging, or, he's working, showing the different tools as he's, it just, every little thing he does, he makes it interesting, and he shows good video. And, for what it's worth, our kids will watch slime videos for hours. So you have to understand that there's different ways to be creative. And if it's not maybe showing the latest and greatest tool, and process about how you're building, maybe it's that point. Maybe you're just showing the process. Maybe you're showing the site cleanliness. Maybe you're talking about, a subtle way that's not soliciting, your mindset as a builder, and people will be attracted to that. So find ways to connect and have fun. And here's what I mean. I think a lot of people that follow me, or at least have for a while, they know, I have a lot of kids. They may not know the exact amount, but they know I have a lot. They know I like golf, and they know I like wearing Jordan shoes. So I have clients that want to go golfing with me. I have some that'll send me Jordans. And so just have maybe something about you that people can relate to in some way, or at least align with their personalities. So then that way it just creates a connection point.
Do you feel like your clients are using your Instagram as a means to figure out your build process? And do you get clients from Instagram, or is it really just to showcase what you guys do and educate along the way?
No, I'm actually using it as a tool for business development, for, sales. Absolutely. We have a ton of clients that reach out to us, and we've sold projects because of Instagram. So it's very strategic as far as we're very non-soliciting. My advice for social media is, speak through your product, speak through your quality, speak through your thought leadership, you'll never see a post that says, hey, we're AFT, hire us. Hey, here's our phone number. Call us for your next build, ever. Like, we're going to try to put out the best product and the best, communication out there. And yes, educate the clients, and whether that's through the podcast, whether that's through construction, whether that's through a lot of different things. I do have clients coming that are more savvy now, that are coming in saying, hey, Brad, we know we need a designer, we need an architect, like, let's get this build done right. So the clients are coming in much more educated because they do follow our platform.
And the credibility, yeah, that's huge. Do you have a system for tracking the clients you do get from social media, or how do you track all of that versus them just calling out of the book?
Yeah, it's actually fairly easy. I mean, if they just call me randomly, I'll always ask how they found us. But the DMs on Instagram, which is how they always come, hey, we want you to build our house. That's a straight up.
That's
they may have found me somewhere else, but it's a DM on Instagram,
Wow.
and those come to fruition all the time. And so those are real easy to track. But I will always ask the client how they heard about us if I don't know from what source it was.
I like that. What's been the funniest thing that's somebody's asked you on Instagram?
Oh, that's a good question. The funniest thing I've been asked. I don't know. I'm not thinking about that. Usually I get a lot of it's more just trying to figure out, how we do the projects we do with the team with so many kids. So they're trying to figure out, how we operate just, on a daily basis. Not so much like, how do you do what you do? It's more like, what does that even look like, having 6 kids and then running the company? So that's probably the biggest feedback, but I'm trying to think if I've had anything really off the wall. We definitely get a lot of people that love certain designs, and they want to know the paint color, of course, and the finishes. And, that's what's really important, to educate them and say, hey, our clients did invest a lot in a designer to do something one-off, and it's important that you do the same.
Yeah, we get that a lot as well. I really like that countertop. Where's that from? Yeah. So it's the same thing. It's respecting what another client has paid for, and a design service that somebody else has essentially paid for, right? We can't just give it around for free. So and that is very, very true. What other advice would you give somebody? I think most of our demographic I'm going to go with is more in the build community. What other advice would you give somebody else who's kind of wrapping it up here? Nice, pretty bow as somebody starting out.
Starting out. Give them a middle. We know the starting out.
Okay,
Maybe
okay.
he's been in business 5, 6, 7 years. He's just starting to post some stuff. He's got a project manager. He's just kind of getting some traction.
I mean, is he married? Are we like, is he local?
Married.
I mean, like, we're really getting
He's
specific here.
5'10". He's got blonde hair. No, just somebody that's in the middle of it right now. He's a little bit working a couple days a week, and like he's just struggling on. He's hearing things like processes, and he's going, "What is that about? Like, what is his next step? What can he do?"
Well, I think you mentioned process. I mean, I think there's processes for social media too. And really what it is, maybe find some time in your schedule. Maybe it's like on a Sunday, you're sitting down planning for the week, and you say, okay, I may not have content for all 7 days, but maybe 4 of the 7, and figure out those days and what that's going to be, and do the write-up and the hashtags and have it all ready. Because here's the reality. When the day happens and you're a small business, you're dealing with fire and crisis mode. As much as you have systems, if you're a small business, you can't delegate very much.
True.
And so you're handling the issues that come up, the phone calls. And it's just kind of like, if you want to be really healthy, you got to spend time to meal prep, which is a pain. And I hate that, right? And you have to, cook the food for the week, organize in little containers. But the reality is the day gets busy and I'm hungry and I'm just going to go to Carl's Jr. Jack in the Box. But if I have a meal prepped, I can eat it because I don't have time to cook it. And it's no different in anything in life. So if you can prepare that for the week, then that's a really good strategy, because everyone is typically immune to posting. And maybe they're like, I hate my voice. I hate how I look. I don't want to be on camera. That's fine. If you don't want to, no problem. But find ways to show your company culture. Find ways to show the personality of your company behind the camera. And maybe it's different things you're doing on the job site. Maybe it's little things you're doing as a company that your competitors aren't. So just find ways to bring value to the public, or create a reason why people would be drawn to your brand. And if people are drawn to your brand, their attention span will change, their word of mouth. I speak all the time about silent salesmen, and a silent salesperson is someone that sells your brand that's not on your payroll. So find people that are advocates of your brand, because there's certain things you're doing that others aren't, and over time that momentum will carry and build.
Preparation, again.
I love that. That's great. So, Brad, we do a fun little closing at the end here because we are all busy and we all have businesses, right? So I need you to check your phone, and I need you to tell me how many text messages and how many phone calls you got while we were in this this session here. So
I had
far,
on Do Not Disturb.
I am
Go
1
ahead,
for
you lead us off.
3. Jerry is winning at this. He's obviously more important than I am. So
Wow.
I'm not. I might get it today though. I think I might get it.
Yeah.
I've got 5 text messages and 2 phone calls.
I got nothing.
Nice.
Oh, an offer.
Jerry.
Steve
Wow.
texted me.
Jerry
That
is
doesn't really count.
You,
So.
you are the king. Okay. In fairness, I only have 3 calls, so that's not too bad.
Okay.
But I am on a few group texts. We just had a documentary release last night for AFT, so there's been a lot of chatter.
Congratulations.
And I'm in a basketball text thread,
So cool.
and so there's a lot. So I have like 97 texts, but some of that is.
Yeah, Brad's way more important
Yeah.
than me. Is what this
No,
shows.
it's not
Brad
important,
is just
but
more
97.
important.
No.
Yes.
Hey, you got to go,
But-
man.
Yeah.
97.
What are you talking to us for?
Okay, 97, but there's probably only like 12 or 13 threads here, so it's not 97 people. There's one group text with like 60 of them, so
It's
that's
fine.
why I'm giving you at least some context.
You're
Here.
fine. You're popular, Brad. We know. And congratulations
we're not.
on the documentary.
No.
When's it going to be available to the public? When are we going to be able to view it?
Yeah, so we had the release last night. It was 50 minutes. It was incredible. I can actually send you a copy. Anyone, I could get that now. And then the full 2.5 hour completion, the full documentary will be done here in about 60 days. So
Wow.
Amazing.
yeah, very excited about it. It was a great turnout. We had a sold out theater last night, which is very exciting. Great turnout, and the feedback's been incredible. So it was really, really good.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Can't wait to check it out.
Congratulations. Well, that was heavy.
Woo, man. Brad's a popular guy. I feel honored that he spent some time with
Yeah,
us.
that was great. I mean, he's got a lot of knowledge. I think you could go for another hour and a half just picking his brain and leave with a book full of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, Brad is such a great resource for the community, for the build community. Is always the first one to put it out there, answer a question, give you some insight. So I hope that everybody enjoyed getting to just get a little dive in. If you haven't had a chance to actually meet Brad or talk to Brad in person, he's so personable and so full of
Yeah,
knowledge.
look him up, follow him, and just take everything he said to heart, because you can tell in his voice that he was passionate about it all and that he was sincere.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't something that he just, was read in a book and did. You can tell he earned his way to where he is, and that's really important to learn from a guy that's had it.
Yeah.
Like that.
And the whole AFT team. We've been lucky to get to see them at other industry functions. And it comes across on social media as well. You can see the culture that's there. It's not just something they talk about, it's something they do. They walk the walk.
Yeah, the name culture. We're really using that a lot lately, and he's definitely walking it. So somebody to look up to, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
I agree. I agree. Well, next week, we are going to have Senator Roger Nilo
Yep.
in the building.
Another big deal, man. Steve's
Another.
booking the big timers. We really got to do our homework on these guys. So
We're
we're gonna get down to business, and we're gonna hear really what's going on in the, what is he in? He's in
he's our senator. They're a
Senator.
local senator here.
legislation is the word.
Correct. Legislation,
Yes.
construction law, construction contracts, construction licensing, some changes that are being implemented to try to help protect homeowners due to some recent shady business activities.
Super important. A lot of outdated stuff that needs to be looked at again and updated. So I think it's going to be an important one to listen to.
Yeah, I think we're
Absolutely.
gonna have some good grilling, some good questions as
Yep,
frustrated contractors that follow the rules.
you're right. Episode 5, that's a wrap. Follow us everywhere that you can on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere that you can get a podcast. We are there.
Like, smash, subscribe.
Smash that subscribe button
Woo!
and you'll find us. Thanks.